Welcome to the deep dive.
Okay.
We are jumping into a contemporary digital phenomenon that starts with, well, unexplained lights over suburban America and spirals out into a truly bizarre theory involving holographic deities and intergalactic corporate espionage.
It's definitely not just a dive, it's more like a free fall into the absolute deep end of modern conspiracy mythology. You really need a guide for this one.
Absolutely. And the hook for this whole conversation, it comes straight from the real world. Over the past few weeks, if you've been anywhere in the Northeast or the mid-Atlantic U.S., especially around places like New Jersey, New York, you've likely seen or heard about this sudden, intense surge in unusual drone sightings, UAP sightings. Thousands of reports just flooding social media, local news. Creates a real feeling of unease, you know?
And, well, as always happens when the sky starts doing strange things, the authorities stepped in pretty quickly to manage the perception. We saw that joint statement, right? FBI, DHS, FAA, DOD.
Yeah, trying to explain it all away.
Exactly, trying to attribute the sightings to, the usual suspects. Lawful commercial drones, hobbyists, misidentified planes, stars, even the Goodyear blimp, apparently.
Right, the blimp. But those explanations, I mean, even if they're factually accurate for, say, 99% of incidents,
Yeah.
they just don't satisfy that primal curiosity, that suspicion people feel when they see something weird.
No, they don't. And that gap between the official story and the public anxiety, it creates a vacuum.
And that vacuum gets filled instantly. Spectacular speculation rushes in.
Yep. We saw this play out really clearly when some prominent public figures like Roseanne Barr, Charlie Kirk started posting about these drones.
And they explicitly invoked one specific sprawling theory.
They name-checked Project Blue Beam.
And that is our mission today. You provided us with this truly astonishing stack of sources detailing this theory. It's a mix of geopolitical fear, apocalyptic prophecy, wild tech speculation.
And the kind of narrative complexity you usually only find in, massive sci-fi franchises.
Exactly. So our goal is to systematically unpack the 4 alleged stages of Project Blue Beam, dig into its deeply bizarre origins, and analyze its, frankly, surprising philosophical and technological implications.
Right.
And we're basing this exclusively on the source material you shared.
Okay, so the core definition first. Project Blue Beam, PBB. It's a theory originated by a Canadian conspiracy journalist named Serge Monast back in 1994.
Got it.
And it claims that NASA and the UN are secretly colluding in this decades-long plot to establish a totalitarian New World Order, the NWO.
Okay, the classic NWO.
Right. And they plan to do it through a 2-part technological deception. First, a faked space-projected second coming of Christ, or, any regional messiah figure.
Wow.
And second, a completely staged alien invasion.
Okay, that's quite the opening gambit. #tag1. The architect and the New World Order blueprint. So to really understand the scope of this thing, we have to start with the man who first put it all down on paper. Serge Monast.
Yeah, Serge Monast, he was a Canadian journalist, also a poet, active back in the 70s and 80s. But in the early 90s, he became really intensely dedicated to conspiracy theories. And that led him to publish his big work, Project Blue Beam, NASA, in 1994. That book basically shaped a whole generation of digital age conspiracy thinking.
And critically, he wasn't just making this stuff up in a vacuum, right? The sources say he was plugged into older conspiracy lore.
Deeply entrenched, yeah. He often relied on some of the most toxic and discredited historical tropes out there. A really clear example is his later work, Les Protocoles de Toronto, 6.6.6, which he explicitly modeled on the protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Wow, okay. The infamous fraudulent text.
Exactly. That notorious forgery from the early 20th century, the one detailing this fictional global plot by Jewish elites for world domination, it shows where his head was at.
So his whole worldview is kind of built on this foundation of secret societies, infiltration, deep paranoia about centralized power. And then he just bolted advanced technology onto that framework.
Precisely. He saw the world through that lens. A covert, unified global elite. The New World Order seeking absolute control. And Monast himself, well, perhaps predictably, given the nature of the theory he published, he didn't live long after its release.
Right, I remember reading that. He died pretty young.
Yeah, December 1996. Only 51. Supposedly a heart attack. This was shortly after he'd been arrested twice on separate charges, by the way.
Which, of course, fueled the conspiracy theories around his death. Classic pattern.
Oh, instantly. It became immediate confirmation for his followers, proof of the deep state's power, they said. They refused to accept the official cause of death.
So what did they claim happened?
Claims immediately started circulating that Monast was assassinated. using exotic technologies, specifically psychotronic weapons, designed to silence him, stop him from spreading the Blue Beam secrets.
Psychotronic weapons?
Oh.
So his death basically created this narrative of martyrdom, which only cemented the theory further in the minds of his followers. It became part of the legend. Okay, so let's look at the alleged goal of all this incredibly elaborate deception. If Project Blue Beam works, what's the horrifying NWO agenda that Monist claimed would follow? The sources you shared paint a picture of, well, absolute terrifying control.
The objectives are systematic, yeah. They target every pillar of human organization: religion, nation, family.
Start with religion.
Okay. First, the abolition of all existing Christian and traditional religions. Just wipe them out. The idea is to replace them with a single unifying world religion, based on what Monists called the cult of man.
The cult of man.
Yeah, and a kind of New Age belief system.
Yep.
The NWO, according to theory, believed that without this universal belief in their manufactured ideology, the dictatorship they wanted couldn't be maintained.
So you have to destroy the old foundations to build the new one. Makes sense, in a terrifying way.
Exactly. Second goal, geopolitical. Abolish all national identities, national pride, sovereignty. Establish instead a singular global identity, world pride.
Dissolve borders, eliminate national militaries.
Right. Concentrate all executive power into a single centralized governing body, presumably the UN, under their control.
And the third objective, that drills down even further, right?
Yeah.
To the family unit.
Yeah, the most fundamental societal unit. And the alleged plan here is incredibly intrusive: the abolition of the traditional family structure.
How would that even work?
Well, the idea is to replace it with individuals who are completely isolated. No tribal loyalties, dependent entirely on and working solely for this new centralized government.
Complete atomization.
Pretty much. And to enforce that level of total subservience, the source material details some truly horrifying secondary goals, stuff that goes way beyond just political control.
Like what? Give us some examples from the sources.
Okay, so according to Monists' theories, the NWO would change laws about the food supply, make it illegal to hunt or fish independently, for instance.
Control the food, control the people.
Exactly. And they'd enforce this by microchipping wild animals. Then there's mandatory national microchipping for all citizens, ostensibly for health or security.
But really for tracking descent.
Right. And for those who refuse this new order, the documents actually speak of creating eradication camps.
Eradication camps.
What?
Seriously.
Yeah. Where dissenters would allegedly be tortured, their organs harvested, sold on a black market run by the NWO itself.
That is incredibly dark. The scope is just total.
It's ruthless, absolute control over biology, belief, behavior, everything.
Okay. That context is vital. If those are the dystopian stakes,
Yeah.
then Project Blue Beam is the high-tech psychological weapon designed to deliver that dictatorship. It seems like an insane amount of effort just to get people to fall in line, but that's the scale of the conspiracy alleged.
It is.
Right. Let's dive into the core mechanics then, the 4 stages Monist outlined, which supposedly culminate in this dictatorship.
Okay, we need to understand these 4 stages as a meticulously planned, progressive psychological operation. It's designed to first dismantle existing mental structures, existing beliefs.
Break people down.
Yeah. And then install the new controlled reality.
So the starting gun for the whole conspiracy is destroying historical truth. Stage 1 involves undermining history and scripture using environmental manipulation.
Correct. The plan alleges the use of artificially caused earthquakes and natural disasters.
Artificially caused? How?
Well, the source material claims this could be done using concepts like HARP, the high-frequency active auroral research program, often cited in geoengineering theories.
Right. HARP comes up a lot in these contexts.
Or, they suggest, by deploying programmed neutron bombs, or even directing solar flares strategically along known fault lines to trigger specific events.
Wait a second. So the conspiracy involves causing massive global destruction, like huge earthquakes, just to plant some fake documents. Doesn't that sound like a ridiculous level of risk and overkill? I mean, the collateral damage.
It sounds insane, absolutely. But the proponents of the theory argue the risk is worth the reward for the NWO. These artificial disasters, they have to occur in very precise locations. Holy sites, ancient cities, historical fault lines.
Places with religious or historical significance.
Exactly. And the devastation needs to unearth supposed new discoveries or arcane mysteries. These would be cleverly forged artifacts, texts, whatever, designed specifically to discredit and falsify all fundamental religious doctrines. Christianity, Islam, you name it.
So imagine an earthquake rips open the ground beneath, say, a major religious landmark in Jerusalem or Mecca,
Right.
and out pops some ancient tablet that irrefutably proves that the faith's central story was misinterpreted or deliberately changed centuries ago. The damage is done.
Exactly. The goal isn't just sowing doubt, it's shattering belief. They want people to think their core doctrines have been fundamentally misunderstood or manipulated for millennia. This phase is designed to destroy trust in existing systems of belief
To destroy current ways of thinking.
and open minds completely to the other possibilities that the NWO is getting ready to offer them. It's psychological preparation.
It's interesting, the sources note some analysts consider this first stage the most reasonable part of the plan.
Well, reasonable is relative here, but yeah. Because it relies on something we know happens. Authority figures controlling information, manipulating archaeological evidence to push an agenda. It's happened before, just maybe not on this scale or with fake earthquakes. It aims to sow massive doubt, which is achievable.
Okay, stage 2. This is the big one. The theatrical event. The global spectacle that really gives Blue Beam its sci-fi reputation. The holographic display.
This is the centerpiece, yeah. A worldwide space show using extremely sophisticated three-dimensional optical holograms and synthesized sound, projected everywhere.
And the key is the screen, right? The source material gets specific about where this is projected.
Yes, onto the sky's sodium layer.
Okay, why the sodium layer? Explain that for us. I mean, is that even a real thing?
It is a real thing, yeah. This is where the pseudoscience tries to connect to actual atmospheric physics. The sodium layer is a naturally occurring band of neutral sodium atoms. It exists way up in the mesosphere and lower thermosphere, maybe 56 to 65 miles above Earth's surface.
Let me use it now.
Astronomers do. They use ground-based lasers to excite these sodium atoms, creating what they call guide stars, basically artificial stars. They use these for adaptive optics on powerful telescopes to get clearer images.
Okay, got it. So the theory extrapolates from that.
Massively. The theory claims the NWO would use powerful space-based laser-generating satellites to excite this vast sodium screen globally, essentially turning the entire upper atmosphere into a gigantic 3D movie screen.
That's a monumental logistical undertaking. But the visual result, if possible, would be unparalleled. And the source says the show wouldn't be generic, right? It would be customized.
And that's the diabolical genius of the deception, according to the theory. The display would be simultaneous, worldwide, but specific to regional faith.
So people in the Middle East would see
Muhammad, presumably. Hindus might see Krishna or Shiva. Christians would see Jesus. All the images would be hyper-realistic, appearing to descend from the heavens, and crucially, speaking in the local languages and dialects of the people watching.
personalized mass deception.
Exactly. Tailored to the individual psyche on a global scale. It's designed to be an overwhelming sensory experience, convincing billions of people simultaneously that their specific deity has returned physically to Earth.
And then comes the climax.
Then comes the terrifying climax. After the individual regional messiahs have appeared and spoken, all these projections, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, all of them would globally merge into a single, unifying central figure.
One figure worldwide.
Yes. And this figure would then declare itself to be the new global god, or, the Antichrist, depending on your interpretation, the one destined to lead the New World Order.
Unbelievable.
And this entire production, the sources note, would be coordinated by incredibly sophisticated computers, fed by massive databases containing every nuance of human culture, ideology, language, belief, everything needed to make the deception perfect.
Okay, if stage 2 was the external spectacle, stage 3 moves inside. It's an internal psychological assault, direct-to-brain communication, V2S voice-to-skull technology.
Okay.
This is maybe the most chilling part of the Monist theory.
It is. It represents the ultimate erosion of autonomy, of self. The claim is that extremely low frequency, ELF, very low frequency, VLF, and low frequency LF waves.
Okay, slow down. ELA, LF, VLF, LF waves. What are those simply?
Right. They're all very long wavelength electromagnetic waves. ELF waves in particular are known scientifically to penetrate water and ground with very little signal loss. That's why they're actually used sometimes for communicating with submarines deep underwater.
Okay, so they can penetrate things.
Yes. And Monist's theory, drawing from some fringe science concepts, suggests that these specific frequencies can also penetrate the atmosphere and, crucially, the human skull.
And interact with the brain somehow.
That's the claim. The theory often links this to the concept of the microwave hearing effect, or the Frey effect. That's a real phenomenon where people perceive sound when exposed to pulsed microwave radiation. PBB theory extrapolates wildly from this.
Yeah.
It claims these specific ELF signals would be modulated, shaped, to replicate human speech patterns. The satellites, constantly fed by those huge databases of human knowledge, ideology, language, they'd use these waves to locate individuals, perhaps through their unique brainwave signatures or some other identifier.
Locate individuals.
Yeah.
Like target one person.
That's the implication. And the result. The technology would enable voice-to-skull communication. This supposedly allows the authorities not only to monitor what a person is thinking, which is bad enough,
Yeah.
but far more dangerously, to inject thoughts, to create artificial chatter inside someone's head.
So people would hear voices.
Voices they would perceive as their deity speaking directly to them. An intimate, internal, divine command, telling them to obey, to comply with the new religious order established back in Stage 2.
But how? If this is satellite-based, how does the theory explain the ability to localize that signal? Make sure one person hears the voice of God and the person standing right next to them hears nothing. That seems like a huge technical hurdle.
It's definitely one of the key feasibility challenges critics raise. The conspiracy lore tries to hand-wave this by suggesting the satellites use incredibly advanced holographic focusing or phase array technology. Think of how modern Wi-Fi routers can sometimes beam signals directly to a specific device, but scale that up massively.
To target the unique electromagnetic signature of an individual human brain.
Something like that. That's the alleged mechanism. And it's crucial because if you cannot trust the voice inside your own head, if you think God is talking directly to you, well, true personal autonomy has effectively ceased to exist. You're completely controllable.
Okay, the fourth and final stage. This is about achieving total submission through universal supernatural manifestations with electronic means.
That sounds wild.
It is wild. This stage involves two interwoven apocalyptic scenarios, both designed to eliminate all remaining political and religious opposition to the NWO.
Okay, break down the first scenario.
The first orientation is geopolitical, the staged alien invasion.
We mentioned this earlier, fake aliens.
Right. The plan is to convince mankind that a massive extraterrestrial invasion is imminent, happening in every major city on Earth simultaneously. This would, understandably, trigger absolute global panic.
And provoke nations to use their ultimate weapon.
Exactly. Provoke the nuclear nations, the US, Russia, China, others, to ready and potentially even use their strategic nuclear weapons in a desperate defensive strike against these perceived alien attackers.
But the attack is completely fake.
Yeah.
A massive global false flag operation.
Correct. And after this false global attack nearly happens, or maybe even partially happens, the UN court or whatever NWO body exists by then steps in. They'd have overwhelming moral authority, the proof that global nuclear war was just narrowly averted by their central power structure,
And they use that moment.
to force all remaining nuclear nations into a state of total disarmament, eliminating the primary military resistance to the burgeoning New World Order. It's a brilliant, if utterly evil, alleged mechanism for achieving total demilitarization under a single authority.
Okay, that's the geopolitical angle. Now, what about the second orientation, aimed at religious resistance, you said?
Yeah.
Primarily Christians.
Yeah, this is the staged rapture.
A fake rapture.
How? The source material claims a false, beneficent alien force, likely tied somehow to the staged Messiah figure from Stage 2, would appear. They'd claim to be intervening on humanity's behalf, saving us.
Playing the role of saviors.
Right. They would stage a divine intervention, rescuing the good people, meaning those who have accepted the New World religion from some brutal final attack, maybe attributed to the remaining forces of evil or rogue states or even the bad aliens.
So they literally stage a fake removal of believers.
Yes,
Yeah.
a theatrical removal of a significant segment of the population. This fake rapture would conveniently eliminate a huge block of organized religious opposition to the NWO, particularly conservative Christians who might resist the cult of man.
Leaving behind only those who are compliant or too scared to resist.
Exactly. And the final act of Stage 4 is maybe the most bizarre part of the entire theory. It involves using electronic and supernatural forces to generate total panic among whoever is left.
Okay, hold on. We've gone from satellites and nukes to literal ghosts and poltergeists.
Yeah.
This is where the theory takes a sharp turn into the deeply occult, isn't it?
It really does. The claim is that specialized frequencies would be transmitted through existing infrastructure, fiber optics, coax cables, telephone lines, general electronic equipment.
Which would all conveniently have special microchips installed beforehand.
Of course.
Naturally. And the result of these frequencies being broadcast everywhere.
Ghosts.
They would somehow be used to materialize ghosts, specters, poltergeists, effectively turning every home, every building into a psychologically terrifying environment. A global haunting, electronically induced.
And the goal of that, to push the remaining population to the absolute brink. Utter despair, madness, psychological collapse. Ensuring that anyone left willingly, even desperately, accepts the new centralized governor, the NWO, the dictatorship, just to make the terror stop. It fulfills Monist's vision of an all-encompassing, electronically enforced slave state. #Tag3, the pop culture to conspiracy pipeline. So when we look back at these 4 stages, right? Artificial artifacts, holographic messiahs, V2S mind control, stage alien wars ending in electronic ghosts. It's clear Project Blue Beam has the structure of a really high-budget, extremely paranoid sci-fi epic.
It really does. Which brings us to a core point of analysis the sources raise. This theory is a textbook case of the pop culture conspiracy theory pipeline.
Yeah, this idea that fictional narratives can seep into reality, influence perceptions, and even get warped into what people believe are real secret plots. It's fascinating.
And the sources point specifically to the Star Trek universe as a potential, maybe even likely, starting point for the whole holographic messiah concept within Blue Beam.
The parallels are genuinely striking. The PBB theory, especially Stage 2, seems strongly linked to an unused Star Trek film script idea from the mid-1970s by the creator Gene Roddenberry himself. This was shortly after the original TV series ended.
Okay, what was Roddenberry's unused idea?
His proposed story involved a giant, powerful alien entity, maybe in a huge ship, hovering over Earth. And this entity was programmed or decided to send down prophet-like figures from human history, including Jesus Christ, as part of some mission to guide or test humanity.
Wow. So a technologically simulated divine event? That's pretty close.
It's incredibly close. And Roddenberry's core idea, that concept, was later recycled and developed into a specific Star Trek, the Next Generation episode. It was called Devil's Due, and it aired in 1991.
Devil's Due, I think I remember that one. An alien pretending to be a mythological figure.
Exactly. A powerful alien entity uses advanced technology holograms, transporter tricks to stage mythological events, and basically enslave a planet by pretending to be their cultural devil prophet figure named Ardra. She comes back demanding they fulfill an ancient contract.
Okay. And Monist published his key Blue Beam text in 1994.
Yes. Right after a major biography of Gene Roddenberry was released, which specifically detailed this unused 1970s film script idea about the fake Jesus.
So the timing lines up perfectly.
It does. Analysts suggest that Monist, who was already steeped in conspiracy tropes like the protocols, simply encountered this sophisticated fictional concept, the idea of a technologically fabricated second coming, and integrated it directly into his existing framework of a globalist NWO plot.
So it wasn't some leaked NASA secret he uncovered?
It was arguably a syndicated sci-fi plot twist he adapted.
That significantly changes the whole provenance of the theory, doesn't it? But the cognitive element here is important too. The sources argue we can see this blending of fiction and reality play out in real-life UAP incidents, which might make conspiracies like Blue Beam seem more believable to some people.
That's the core cognitive distortion at play. Memory isn't like a perfect video recording. It's constructed, it's rebuilt every time we access it. And scholars studying this stuff, they observe that human memory can be dramatically distorted by suggestion, by cultural expectations, and especially by the fiction we consume.
So when people encounter something genuinely unexplained, like a fast drone, a weird light, an odd radar blip,
their brain subconsciously tries to categorize it, and it often uses the most dramatic, memorable, and easily accessible narratives available, which today often come from movies and TV shows.
The sources use the famous David Fravor Nimitz Tic Tac incident from 2004 as a key analogy for this. Fravor, the former Navy pilot, testified about seeing this strange, off-white, capsule-shaped object doing maneuvers that seemed to defy known physics.
Right. And here's where the pipeline argument connects, according to some analysts in the source material. They argue that Fravor's memory of the Tic Tac object, its specific shape, its color, its maneuvering, might have been subconsciously influenced by recent exposure to episodes of Star Trek.
Enterprise.
Enterprise. How so? Specifically, 2 episodes, 0 Hour and Stormfront, which apparently aired repeatedly during that exact period in late 2004. And these episodes featured an almost identical-looking off-white tic-tac-shaped shuttle pod being intercepted by hostile forces in dramatic aerial sequences.
And the timing. Was the Nimitz crew watching TV then?
The timeline is incredibly tight, yeah. The Nimitz carrier group was actually in port for Fleet Week in San Diego during the fall of 2004, precisely when those specific Enterprise episodes were airing multiple times on syndication. And Fravor himself has identified as a Trekkie. He even used a Star Trek IV scene as an analogy when describing his experience later.
So the argument isn't that he didn't see something.
No, not at all. The argument is that the interpretation of what was seen, the specific shape, the recall of its appearance, might have been subtly conflated with a striking visual template he'd recently encountered in fiction. Real-world radar returns and visual data get filtered through and perhaps shaped by familiar fictional imagery.
We see this with other shapes too, right? The sources mentioned the classic triangle UFO.
Yeah, the Black Triangle. Its massive surge in reports has been repeatedly linked back by researchers to the dramatic debut of the wedge-shaped Imperial Star Destroyer in Star Wars back in 1977. Suddenly, people started seeing giant triangles everywhere.
So the phenomenon is that basic real-world stimuli drones, strange aircraft, lights, maybe just radar glitches, get filtered through the lens of popular culture.
Which is why critics often note that many conspiracy theories, especially visual ones, appear bewilderingly unoriginal, as one source put it. They are, in a very real sense, borrowing the most effective dramatic visual language from Hollywood blockbusters and mistaking it for secret government planning or alien spacecraft.
And Project Blue Beam, with its holographic Jesuses and staged invasions, might be the ultimate example of reality, or perceived reality, imitating science fiction.
Okay, now prepare yourself. We need to make a truly enormous leap. We've established that Monis was concerned with basically 1990s geopolitics and maybe some borrowed Star Trek plots.
Right, NASA, the UN, the NWO, terrestrial stuff mostly.
But modern sources, the ones you provided, have taken the original PBB narrative and, well, they've bolted it onto 21st century astrophysics and speculative corporate espionage. We're moving way beyond NASA and the UN now.
Where are we going?
We're hypothesizing an ultimate external cosmic threat, a Kardashev entity.
Okay, Kardashev entity. Explain that. Sounds big.
It is big. This is where the narrative shifts from terrestrial fear to vast cosmic speculation. For context, the Kardashev scale proposed by Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev in the 60s, it's a method of classifying how advanced a civilization is based on the amount of energy it can harness.
Right, I've heard of this. Type I, Type 2, Type 3.
Exactly. Type I controls all the energy available on its home planet. Type 2 controls all the energy of its host star, maybe using a megastructure like a Dyson sphere.
And Type 3?
Controls energy on a galactic scale, harnessing the power of billions of stars. So when these sources talk about a Kardashev entity, they're hypothesizing a civilization or maybe even a single consciousness that controls the energy and resources of an entire galaxy or maybe even multiple galaxies.
Okay. Mind-boggling scale. And in this speculative context, what are the alleged goals of such an entity?
Domination and resource extraction, but on a cosmic level. They call it galactic mining. And this includes both physical resources, minerals, elements from stars and planets, and digital data from less advanced civilizations, like us.
Digital data.
Yeah.
How does Project Blue Beam fit into that?
That's the key expansion of the PBB lore in these newer sources. The theory views the original PBB mechanisms, the stage invasions, the V2S psychological manipulation, the global surveillance needed for the holograms and mind control, as simply the terrestrial components of a far vaster interstellar exploitation strategy.
So Earth is just one small part of a galactic operation.
We're seen as a resource node. Humanity is viewed as livestock, or maybe a data farm, to be managed, harvested, and extracted by this higher intelligence.
This includes that idea of pornocracy the sources mentioned. What is that exactly? In this context, it sounds lurid.
It does sound lurid, but in this context, pornocracy refers to the concept of massive, non-consensual, wireless digital data mining on a planetary scale. The Kardashev entities are allegedly extracting everything: Earth's cultural values, our ideologies, political history, scientific knowledge, art, music.
And even niche data streams.
And yes, the documents specifically cite the hypothetical example of them recompiling pornographic data streams from Earth and integrating them into vast intergalactic digital marketplaces for consumption or perhaps analysis by other alien species.
Wow. So it's the ultimate colonization, not just our land or resources, but our consciousness, our culture, our data.
That's the idea, the colonization of our collective mind.
So the argument then follows, logically I guess, that Earth's most advanced deep mining organizations, they aren't just digging for profit here on Earth. They're potentially acting as test beds, prototypes for galactic mining techniques.
Precisely. If you look at the major players in deep mining companies like Rio Tinto, digging for iron ore, copper, diamonds, BHP with energy and metals, Vale with nickel and copper, they are constantly pushing the absolute limits of extraction technology.
Right, developing things like autonomous mining robots, engaging in deep-sea mining for rare earth elements like neodymium and cobalt, funding ultra-deep boreholes.
The speculative theory posits that maybe these huge technological leaps aren't entirely organic. Maybe they're being subtly influenced by mysterious external stakeholders or receiving sudden disproportionate technological transfers, all aimed at prototyping methods that could later be used for asteroid mining, or stripping resources from other planets, or even stellar exploitation.
So the goal isn't just getting rare earth elements for our high-tech industries.
But because those same elements might be critical for external galactic agendas we can't even comprehend, it reframes terrestrial resource extraction completely.
Which raises this profound philosophical and frankly terrifying ethical question embedded in the source material. If a Kardashev entity is real and interested in Earth, who on this planet would possibly have the power or the sheer audacity to falsely sign over ownership of the entire planet to them?
That's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? The sources list several potential signatories or collaborators.
Who's on the list?
Well, major governments are high suspect. The U.S., China, Russia may be seeking some ultimate military-industrial advantage by trading sovereignty for access to advanced alien technology.
Corporations.
Or multinational corporations, yeah. Especially the mining giants we just mentioned, or maybe global high-tech conglomerates like Tesla, Apple, Samsung. Imagine being guaranteed an unlimited, exclusive supply chain of rare earth elements or advanced materials. What would they trade for that?
Potentially anything.
Or, the theory goes, it could be compromised individual leaders, maybe heads of state, or powerful figures within secret societies, coerced through offers of immense wealth, unimaginable power, or maybe through blackmail, or even psychological torture using advanced tech.
The counter-argument proposed to the sources, though, is pretty clear.
It's crucial. Humanity must assert that no single individual, no corporation, no government possesses the legitimate authority to unilaterally sign away the sovereignty of the entire Earth and its inhabitants. That right doesn't exist.
And if this galactic threat is real, the sources provide an incredibly imaginative counter-narrative. It almost sounds like cosmic law, intergalactic litigation.
Yes. This is the most wildly speculative extension of the theory, but it's fascinating. We find this idea of cosmic justice. Apparently, 6 other galaxies, also allegedly targeted or excluded by the same Kardashev entity.
6 other galaxies are involved.
Yeah, they collaborate to sue it. File a lawsuit on an intergalactic scale.
What are the charges? What do you sue a galaxy-controlling entity for?
Sovereignty violations, obviously. Ecological crimes on a stellar or planetary scale, maybe strip mining entire star systems. And interestingly, cultural damage resulting from that digital exploitation we talked about.
Including the data mining.
Including, the sources explicitly mention, tracing those recompiled digital data streams, like the porn example, back to the intergalactic marketplaces run by the defendant entity, proving cultural theft and exploitation.
This is amazing. So how do they pursue this? What's their strategy?
Well, first, they establish a galactic tribunal, naturally, to handle the complex legal proceedings across interstellar distances.
The Galactic Court, okay.
Then they draft a galactic rights charter, sort of a bill of rights to protect nascent or less technologically developed sentient civilizations, like potentially us. They create shared intelligence networks between the 6 plaintiff galaxies to gather evidence, and technologically they deploy a galactic data firewall.
A firewall across galaxies.
Designed specifically to prevent further wireless data mining and consciousness exploitation by the Kardashev entity. It is the ultimate meta-narrative, isn't it? About justice, collective resistance against overwhelming centralized power, but projected onto a scale that makes Serge Monist's original NWO plot look like, I don't know, a kindergarten play.
Okay, let's carefully descend from the Galactic Tribunal and come back down to Earth. Back to the recent drone and UAP sightings over the eastern seaboard, the real-world events that triggered this whole Project Blue Beam resurgence on social media lately.
What we're seeing play out right now on the ground, or rather in the skies and online, is a perfect example of information anxiety colliding head-on with a pre-existing mythological template.
How so?
The official response, lawful drones, misidentified aircraft, the Goodyear blimp, it's immediately viewed by many amateur investigators and concerned citizens as either totally inadequate or worse, as outright proof of a cover-up.
Because the blue beam theory provides a ready-made explanation.
Exactly. The specific details of Monis' theory offer a framework for why the military or some shadowy agency would suddenly deploy thousands of drones. They're doing surveillance for the NWO, or they're testing the holographic projection equipment needed for Stage 2, or maybe the drones themselves are just a massive distraction from something else entirely.
And within the conspiracist community, there are often factions, sub-theories, right? We heard about a specific group fixated on orbs.
Yes, that's a notable faction mentioned in the sources. There's a subset of observers who focus intently on the orbs, these small, often self-luminous pinpoints of light, sometimes referred to as plasmoids or other exotic terms.
And their theory differs from the main PBB drone idea.
Their theory is often that the orbs are the real phenomenon. Maybe they're genuine extraterrestrial probes or interdimensional beings or some kind of supernatural energy manifestation. And the thousands of conventional-looking drones being reported, those are just military surveillance craft monitoring the orbs, or, crucially, they're a deliberate distraction campaign.
A distraction.
The military, or the NWO, the theory goes, is using the mass deployment of easily identifiable drones to draw the public's attention away from the truly high strangeness events, the orbs that are supposedly happening simultaneously. Flood the zone with mundane explanations to hide the extraordinary.
That feedback loop where the more official sources deny or explain prosaically, the more some people believe something else must be happening. It's incredibly difficult to break, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even the governor of New Jersey acknowledged the general anxiety about the sightings was legitimate.
It is legitimate to feel anxious when you see unexplained things in the sky, especially over populated areas. But this brings us right to the ultimate advice offered by critics and analysts in the source material regarding how to handle this kind of information overload.
Which is?
The absolute need for critical thinking and discernment. Some sources even frame this kind of careful evaluation as a form of spiritual protection against manipulation, whether that manipulation is mundane or more exotic.
So we have to critically evaluate everything we see and hear?
Everything. Whether it comes from the government or an anonymous poster on social media or even a seemingly credible witness. We have to consciously resist that powerful impulse to immediately accept the most sensational, most dramatic narrative just because it feels compelling or confirms our biases.
But there's a danger there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we become too skeptical, if we doubt everything, we risk falling into a kind of paralyzing nihilistic relativism where no truth seems recognizable anymore.
That is the tightrope we walk in the modern information environment. That's the danger. When authentic whistleblowers potentially revealing real secrets become indistinguishable from deepfakes or AI-generated content or deliberate disinformation agents, then reality itself becomes contested territory. Fragmented.
So what's the constructive path forward, according to the sources?
The sources generally conclude that the solution isn't to succumb to mass hysteria on one side or paralyzing cynicism on the other. Instead, it's about demanding concrete transparency through established legal and civic channels, Freedom of Information Act requests, congressional inquiries, supporting independent journalism, demanding accountability from officials.
Using this system rather than just speculating outside it.
Essentially, yes. Even if you suspect the system is compromised, engaging with it transparently is seen as more productive than simply retreating into echo chambers of fear and speculation.
And why is navigating this so crucial? It seems to tie directly back to Monis' original core fear behind Project Blue Beam, the fear of total ruthless control.
Exactly. The narrative of PBB, stripped down, is ultimately about the fear of losing personal autonomy. Losing your mind, your freedom, your connection to reality. It describes the most complete form of dictatorship imaginable.
Going all the way back to those horrifying details.
Right. Including the physical subjugation, implanting microchips in wild animals to control the food supply, changing laws about psychiatric health to pathologize and control dissenters, and even using fake supernatural manifestations to psychologically break the will of the entire population. The fear evoked by Project Blue Beam is, at its heart, the primal fear of losing your individual self to a hyper-advanced, invisible, centralized authority.
#tag outro.
This has certainly been a deep dive into an astonishingly complex, detailed, and frankly disturbing conspiracy theory. Project Blue Beam, when you really look at its core, it synthesizes so many genuine contemporary anxieties. Fears about advanced technologies, holography, V2S, synthetic media, AI, and the terrifying thought that they could be weaponized.
Weaponized to fundamentally manipulate global reality, individual belief systems, governance itself, all on a planetary scale.
Yeah, it blurs the lines between science fiction, technological possibility, and paranoid conspiracy more effectively than almost any other modern mythos out there. And we absolutely have to remember, as the sources emphasize, even if Monist's specific theory is ultimately baseless, perhaps just a product of him borrowing heavily from sci-fi and layering it onto existing historical paranoia, the theory itself functions as a powerful modern myth.
Oh, so?
It captures and reflects very real, very contemporary anxieties. Anxieties about the dizzying speed of technological development, about the opacity and perceived unaccountability of powerful centralized authorities, governments, corporations, tech giants, and Amy, most importantly, anxieties about the sheer vulnerability of our own individual perception in this current age of intense information warfare and digital saturation.
Okay, so here's the final thought for you, our listener, to consider. This is pulled directly from the broader implications of the source material we've discussed today.
Go ahead.
The sources suggest, provocatively, that a conspiracy narrative might be able to influence reality simply through the power of collective belief. Think about that. If the idea of a fake alien invasion or the idea of a staged second coming gains enough cultural traction, if millions and millions of people start to genuinely believe that the government or some hidden power could fake the second coming with technology, does the sheer collective force of that belief, that fear itself, create the psychic conditions, the social vulnerability that makes society more broadly susceptible to any large-scale manipulation, regardless of whether it's actually holographic or psychological or something else entirely we haven't even thought of?
Does the fear pave the way?
Exactly. Does the fear itself become the weapon? Think about the power of belief itself and how narratives shape our reality as you scroll through your news feed later today.